Hi, everybody. It's Nancy Reyes with For Your Canine.
And Joanne Soike with For Better For Worse.
And Lisa Pataska with Canine Defined.
Yeah, we've been on a little break. I know we've had some pre-recorded, so hopefully you enjoyed some of those reruns, if you will, that we had in the past. With a lot of our schedules and travel, it's been a little challenging. So today, this topic was referred to us by some other people who are that listen and that were asking for. We always like the feedback and getting to know what do you want to hear about or what do you want to hear more about. And one of the things that has come up more than once has been etiquette at trials and class etiquette, which I thought was an interesting topic, but a worthy conversation piece, right? To kind of, for those of us who do, for those people that do classes, people who host classes, and those people who compete at trials at different sports. Some of the things are they may seem so basic, but some of the people who are new to the sport or new dog owners or people who haven't been around the dog community, uh, maybe this would be a little helpful and help you kind of navigate things a little easier with your dog and make life a little simpler with your dog, which is why we do the live, right? And why we so that things can be easier for those of you who are interested in that. So one, we'll start with classes because those people who go to group classes, um, for and Lisa and Joanne can jump in for puppy and basic classes. They're all usually all together, and they usually all are in a room, and they all everybody works together on the same exercises. So crating isn't usually an issue, but allowing dogs to run into each other or make contact, and sometimes it's no harm in that, but sometimes that's a problem, right? Letting the dogs pull you towards another dog, or maybe depending on the type of class. For example, if it's a reactive class, that might be a bigger problem, right? If people dogs come in and have and meet or connect in some way. So those are like some basic things that we wanted to kind of cover. Um,
I would say a big one for me,
hmm?
be on time. Be on time.
Yes.
So if your class starts at 6, please don't show up at 6:05 because we're already rolling. Potentially there's already dogs working, there's a dog out, right? And if you open that door, you could be distracting that first dog's turn. And everybody has that one time you got stuck in traffic, there was a train, whatever it is, right? But I think we all know some repeat offenders where you're consistently coming into class 5-10 minutes late, right? So it's just a courtesy, you know, please, or at least maybe leave your dog behind you and kind of peek in and just make sure that it's safe and that nobody's loose, and there's a good place to jump in instead of just walking through the room when everyone's moving.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, especially for for the dog sport classes, you might already have somebody already working, or if the instructor is doing a demo of some sort with another dog. And conversely, conversely, don't show up an hour early either,
Yeah.
because
A little early. I think a little early is good, right?
little
Like
early is good.
before class, you
Absolutely.
can bring your stuff in, put it on a chair, get prepared to bring your dog in, assess the situation if you're able. Like I get
Hmm.
that. So
Hmm. Yeah, but getting there a lot earlier is very, very hard for navigating traffic and the instructor having to manage you, that she might have a class ahead of you or whatever, and manage everything when or and trying to get ready for class and trying to entertain the students. So too early is also a toughie for us too. So yes, a few minutes early is always good because you can bring, like Lisa said, you can bring your stuff in, and all that stuff would be great. And also to jump on Joanne's, come prepared with your treats, with poop bags, with whatever is required of every training facility has different requirements, but I think those that use positive reinforcement, treats is always a big one. I cannot tell you how many people we have come through for class and they forgot their treats. So they have to leave the dog, go get treats, come back and be able to finish up class. So it just delays the progression of the class a little bit. So, and again, like Joanne said, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you get stuck by a train. Sometimes you're in a hurry and all that happens. Occasionally that's okay. But if it's a chronic problem, then it'd be, it's challenging. Um, the other thing is if you are in for a puppy or basic, like I said, most all the dogs are out together or working together. For the dog sport classes, one of the things is the dogs need to be crated because it's one dog at a time. If you crate, so with nose work, it's a very customary for dogs to crate out of the car. But sometimes weather doesn't permit it, whether it's too cold or too hot or whatever it is. So making sure that your dog can handle being in a crate or an X pen and coming prepared, bringing Kongs, bringing something to chew on so that they'll be happy in a crate and doing some of that training at home. Because one of the issues I have, if you're going to want to do a dog sport, I think that's wonderful and it's great for the dog. However, if you don't give him the life skills he or she needs to be able to do that sport, it's really unfair because then you're adding so much stress to the dog's life because you want to compete in it. But if you never taught them that they have to travel, they have to sit in the car, they have to wait their turn, all those things that happen in class, right? Because in class they don't have to wait as long as all day, but they do have to wait their turn. They have to let other dogs go and things like that. So I think it's only fair to be able to allow your dogs to, have that develop
Yeah.
that.
And I think too, depending on your class and who you are and who your friends are in class, I think potentially maybe the first night of class, maybe crate your dog out of the car if you have an issue. But class is a really great place where I
Mhm.
feel like we get camaraderie around the people who are in our classes because usually it's the same people over and over again. Ask your neighbor, right? Like, hey, I'm really trying to work through some stuff and my dog is really struggling. And like, would you mind if I just bring you in some treats? Would you mind dropping in some treats? Like if I walked away or if I have a turn or whatever it is, but like always ask. Don't expect anyone in your class to help you train your dog. Always ask that. And most people are very, very willing. And because, you're helping everyone when the dog's quiet and calm and comfortable, it helps everyone in the room. So most people are very willing, but just ask.
Yeah, that's well, and that's a good one because I yes, and we as instructors try to set up that environment right to be able to help the dogs and help and make the people feel welcome. Because yes, as Joanne alluded to earlier, especially the dog sport classes, it's the same people in class all the time. They're always there together. So making sure that, and it's a social time for the dogs, social times for the people. But and so yes, being able to help each other out is really great because especially in the dog sport classes, everybody's got the same goal, I suppose, and they want to have a good time with their dogs. So it's really important that they get to,
I think it's funny. I got the comment that Michelle is watching, and so when she got a new puppy, she's a very spicy puppy, and she would just be very embarrassed, right, to bring her dog in because she was like she'd do the spins, and then you'd hear the nails, and she'd kind of bark and whine, and it was like I got the manners minder, and she was Michelle. I hope you don't mind I'm calling you out, but like I think it was just maybe being a little embarrassed to ask for help or whatever, and so I was like, hold on. I just like put the manners minder on top of the crate and I had the remote control. And as I was teaching, I just, clicked the button.
Yep.
But, it's just one of those, don't be embarrassed because you've never had that problem. I promise you your time is coming. So.
No, or you might not have that problem, but you might have other ones. Right. And
here comes Susie and her dog again. Gee.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's true. Everybody, and I understand how people do get embarrassed, and it's like there's nothing to be embarrassed about. If your dog was perfect, you wouldn't be coming to class.
Right.
Like,
Right.
some of our puppy and basic, you wouldn't be coming if your dog was perfect. You'd be sitting at home. How many, and I know you guys have had those. Where you have clients that have, this is the first I've had blah, blah, blah dogs, and this is the first one I've had to come to class. Yeah, because that happens.
And they're different now than they were when we grew up, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Very different.
The expectation is very different. Correct.
And yes, and the freedoms and all the stuff is very different than it was, right? And genetically too. But
yeah,
I agree with you. I think I see a lot of that. It's like FOMO is a thing, right? Especially for our teenagers, like fear of missing out. Like, what about me? And that kind of stuff. And I think it's really important that you train that, and as I deal with dogs in my own house, I'm like, especially the teenagers, they're just different in terms of not getting gray hairs and still remembering when they were puppies and you didn't want to kill them.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Like I think people don't realize it, but there's so much going on in the head that we have to either train or manage. And if the dog is way overfaced or overwhelmed or with dealing with the distraction going on around them, then you need to assess how you can handle it, right? So like creating is great. It's one of the things I teach, and it's super important to me. But at the same time, it's like I understand when too much is too much, and then you have to support it according to who the individual is, right? So
yeah. So that's one of, and being embarrassed. And then, and if you feel that way, talk to your instructor about it, because, we're not, no, if your dog was really well behaved and perfect, we'd be probably wondering why you're there, because he wouldn't need us at all if your dog was perfect. And also, and I know we've all experienced it, some of the class might be a little more judgy about it, and then we have to kind of address it, right? It's like, everybody has their rocks to carry, and it might not be the same rocks, but we all have to carry some. So it's okay, and most of the people, especially those classes that have been together a long time, when there's a new student, they do tend to make them feel very welcome and, kind of embrace them if they've having issues most of the time.
And if you're not, we will give you all the rocks and we'll drown you slowly. So.
Nice.
Right. So
that does lead into a new thing, right? Even if it's not your issue, be nice, be kind, be considerate, yes. Be helpful.
Absolutely.
Right. Just put on your nice, kind pants for the day, for the hour of class. Cause I think for the most part, that's it, right? I don't really see that many problems, but every once in a while somebody's grumpy or they had a bad day or they're short with something or, and you're like, you will have a problem someday too. Like, just relax. It's not affecting you, just give it a minute. We'll all try and adjust and fix our things together. So,
right. Because, I think more, and I don't know if I don't know for a fact if this is a true thing. I think more and more instructors are a little bit more compassionate about and a little bit more helpful about helping those people that are struggling, especially if they're not used to having a certain type of dog or having a dog that has issues or whatever. You know what I mean? I think more and more people tend to be a little, I know that it takes all kinds, but we, especially in our respective businesses, we do try to build more tolerance and more of a community. So then that way, we can make everybody feel welcome and belong there. Right.
Truly the people that are like coming to class, like they want to make a difference, right? Mm-hmm. Or reaching out for help. They want to make a difference. So like in the end, like finding a commonality is not unheard of or something that's not socially accepted. Like, like give each other some slack. Like nobody's perfect, right? So, if somebody's reaching out for help, don't smack their hand because they're not. Right. Let's.
Because somebody may smack yours another time.
Right.
Right. So, that's for class. So like Joanne said, being on time, coming prepared. uh, coming prepared, which is important, right? Making sure and communicate, right? If you're having an issue or a problem, or if and a lot of times those students that have been with us a long time, we kind of know when they're having a bad day,
Yeah.
so we might
Yeah.
kind of pick up on that and be like, okay, let's help them feel better about the day. Because a lot of times I remember when I was taking my dogs to training, I might have been having a tough day, but the minute I got to training, I felt so much better about the day. It was fun, enjoying. I enjoyed being there, hanging out with the dogs and all that, and it was a good thing. But
Mhm.
sometimes we have to most of the time we catch it, but every once in a while you miss it. So communicate with your instructor about what's going on with you if you're having some issues or whatever, and because we're here to help you. We're not, you know,
Yeah.
we're here to help you and support you and your dog. So talk to your instructors.
And I have one more, and it's housekeeping, and it's because I don't like to stay late and clean up. So it's just
I love it. No.
so yeah, I know. I'm not a hotel maid. So I understand like sometimes things happen, and I'm the first one to help clean up pee or get something that happens. Like it's not that. It's not that I'm like I'm not cleaning up after you. It's the fact that, right, like I know in my facility I have a lot of blankets to cover crates with, and I have lick mats in the freezer if somebody needs them, and I have kind of common items that can be a shared thing to help manage dogs in situations, right? So it's sort of, at the end of the night, if you've used it, you know, put it back the way you found it. So it's kind of like the Airbnb, right? Yes, you pay a cleaning fee, but try and at least leave your crate space. If you have, I'm going to pick on a husky, right? Or a German shepherd, right? And for whatever reason, they're blowing their coat today, and you go to leave and you notice they've left like a ring around the crate. You know what I mean? I mean, just do your best. I'm not asking for you to get the vacuum cleaner out, but right, like do your best to kind of just tidy up that space for the next person that comes. And it just helps the wear and tear, and then the next person doesn't have a drooly crate or hair all over next to it, or they want to cover their dog and the blanket's not there, or it's crumpled somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Like, so just a
Yes.
common, leave it like you found it kind
Yep.
of.
Yep. And I would agree with Joanne 100% because we also have the same. We have blankets to cover the crates and things like that. And I'll be honest, the majority of our folks do a wonderful job of that, of cleaning up. Every once in a while, you'll have a crate full of treats that somebody left because their dog was a little too stressed. So those are the ones we see more often than not. Yeah, hair, shepherds, yes, but a lot of times it's the treats that they're putting in the crate and the dog's too
Sure.
stressed to eat them and things like that. So yeah, just especially since, like as Joanne said, somebody else is coming in behind them to use that crate, right? And again, if the dog that's coming in behind them with a crate full of cookies isn't allergic, then it's okay. But if the dog has some kind of allergies, then it's a problem. So those are all just really common sense things. And we do have at our facility, and I know Joanne does at hers, and Lisa is a cleaning bucket. We have it there so that we can you can use it if you need it, because they're dogs. And again, for the dogs that are there all the time, it's most of those people are good, but you never know if there's with especially now flea and tick season and things like that, you want to be mindful about what's going on there and making sure your dogs are taken care of that way. Um, so and most of the things are housekeeping, right? And just being ready and things like that. Now, switching gears to trials.
Can I say one more thing about class?
You bet.
Oh boy.
You bet.
I'm getting on my horse. So I just have a legit question. So those of you who are watching us, I really want to know, like, what is the deal with paying for a class and then like being like this the whole time? Like,
Oh, yeah, it's a good
what
one.
is that? Like, I mean, it's fine. I know people like their social media, and it's more, some of it's a bit of an addiction, right? If it's not me and I'm not
Yes.
engaged, I'm looking at my phone. But I don't understand where when you want to pay for something and pay for instruction and like how much you learn from watching other people.
Yes.
If it's not your turn, your face is buried in your phone. I mean, I don't scold people, but and it's not me because I've learned to deal with it over the years, but I do have some of my instructors that are like, I feel like am I not doing a good enough job? And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with you really. It's just it's people. But
Me age right now.
I've often wanted to go around with a basket and like, give me your phone, give me your phone, give me your phone, give me your phone. Right? Just to see if people would super stress out for an hour of not looking at your
They
social
probably
media,
would.
you know?
I know I have a few students that totally would have a panic attack without their phone for an hour.
So
But I too have thought of doing that.
so like it's just a thing for me. So do what you will, but understand sometimes, right? If we're teaching, you know, not paying attention sometimes, I don't want to say it hurts our feelings, but like sometimes I'm like, I'm trying really hard and I like half of them aren't listening. So you're like, where's the hide? Where's it at? And you're like, I'm not telling you. Anyway.
It's a secret now.
So it's
Yeah, but you know, like when that happens in class, I really don't see that. I mean, fortunately, and maybe, I don't know, maybe people get to a certain point where they think they can check out based upon what they're doing with their dogs.
sure.
But and for me, I don't teach as many classes as both of you, but when I teach class, I start calling on people. I'm like, hey, you,
Yeah.
how about you demo this for us? And they're like, what? Oh, well, like this, you know?
Yeah.
And I try not to be a jerk about it, but at the same time, I'm like, if you're paying, I want your engagement, right? I mean, I love working with dogs, and you have to love working with people in order to work with dogs, period. Unless you pick a job that has nothing to do with the people, it's just on the back end, etc. But, you know, ultimately, like I'm in it for dogs staying in their homes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then once they get into like the sports stuff, they're vested. So part of me wonders, okay, are they not vested in the beginning because they're still learning? And then once they get to a certain point, they're like, yeah, I know this. Or
I think I think well, like I'll be honest, for me sometimes running the business and teaching as many classes as I do gets very challenging because sometimes I have things happening that I have to be like multitasking, which is really hard. Because if I have something broken or something, some situation going on that because I can't say I got to take care of this right now. So I have to, but it doesn't happen very often. But I think some of the people that have been, and I don't know if Joanne can jump in, that have been with you for a long time and with the same class for a long time. I think, and that's why sometimes, that's why we go on so many field trips and all that to just change it up so that we can just, change the same old a little bit and just make it different and just change the air, as Stan Matsumoto used to say, and just, do something different. Because and sometimes you can't do that. So you have to just try to keep it. And this is where some of the classes, it's like, okay, you guys can put the hides out and then tell me what you think is going to happen. And that creates a little bit more engagement. But yeah, I think now for the people who have puppy and basic, that's a really tough thing because it's like you really need to stay engaged during that whole class. It's hard.
I don't see it much there because they can't, right? They're there because they can barely manage their dog. So I don't normally see it there. I usually see it in sport classes.
Yep. Yeah. And it's probably because they've been doing it for so long. So, and that's why I try to use a lot of games and stuff like that to keep people engaged. Because yes, I do start to see that a little bit in people on their phones. Even though I'll be honest, the majority of our students don't do that. It's there's a chronic people, but Joanne alluded to it. Maybe there's an addiction there that they can't not. And some students will say, "Hey, I have this happening. I have, I have this problem, or I have this situation that I might need to be on the phone. And that's fair, because then I know it's not,
Sure.
they're very polite, and they're like, yeah, this is why it's happening, because I have X, Y, and Z happening today, or whatever. So, yeah. But yeah, and yeah. Well, and Joanne, to that end, how people who pay for classes and never come, or they come to,
4 of them and then never do the rest of the session.
right.
Yeah, that's more beginner people, but
It
Yes.
is. It is. It is. It is. It is. I can totally say that.
Yeah.
one of my we had a staff meeting today, and one of my instructors was like, "Can we just make it a 4-week obedience class, since a lot of them seem to leave after 4 weeks?" And I was like, "No, we cannot."
Well, there's a commitment level, right? It's like
Correct.
you're paying this. Like, I know my information that I give to you is pretty valuable.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to be a butthead about it, but I know what I have to give out to you can help you. This is, this is what we've lived our lives for, right?
Right.
So those of you who are listening, what would be some of the reasons why you would uh stop coming, and not, and I would be, so I always tend to do like polls, or ask, every couple times a year, like, what, just to get information. Is it what we're doing? What, and many times it turns out that it's their life that got in the way. But sometimes it would be nice to know that that's why, right? Like, something happened, I lost my job, or I lost, or something. Or in many cases, when it was like, in a couple cases, the dog got sick and wasn't able to continue on, but at least then we were able um, to accommodate them, like give them credit, and they can go
Yep.
another time. But yeah, and that's why trying to play games and things like that, because after you've been with some folks for a long time, you definitely want to shake things up for them. All right. So yeah, if I miss class, yeah. So,
Thanks,
for,
ladies, for sharing.
Yeah. Yep.
for classes, trials, I'm saying. So trials are a little, oh, for classes and trials. So this goes for both of those. As you're parking in the parking lot, whether it's coming into the training facility, or going to a trial site, be very mindful about your surroundings. If people are taking their dogs out, if people are coming around the corner. And this goes back to Joanne's cell phone. Don't be on the phone coming into the facility,
Yep.
looking at your phone with your dog. Nothing good will come of it, I promise you.
Especially with a teenager, you'll be dragged to
Right.
to
Somebody's going to fall down. So please, when before you take your dog out, check out what's going on around you. Pay attention to where other dogs are and other people are with respect to their dogs. We have had some incidences where somebody just walked past close to another car. The person was taking their dog out. The dog jumps out to go after the other dog, and the handler actually falls down. So those are kind of things like, don't walk so close to a parked car, give them wide berth. Those are really important, whether it's a trial or whether it's at the training facility, right? And our parking lot, while it's big, it's still lots of cars, lots of people. We have lots of stuff going on, lots of people walking around with dogs. So paying attention is really, really important, right? And a trial too, because a trial is a very different setup, because there's places you can't go and all that. Same and for agility and or nose work, or any kind of sporting situation, and parking in a don't take 2 parking spaces. Take the one. Stuff, little things like that, right? And also, don't run up on somebody that has a dog, and I know we've talked about this a lot. My dogs are all super friendly, but I am not going to be okay with you coming up to my dog unless my dog knows your dog really, really well, and there's a purpose behind it.
You just want to say hi.
Yeah. because that it's like, and just because you see that dog being nice to another dog, you don't know the history those two dogs have. They might have a long history of friendship. You- And if your dog doesn't, I wouldn't do that. And I think that's the biggest thing with pet people, pet own, new pet owners. They want their dogs to have social interactions, and so do we. But we want them to be structured and very well controlled, so it's a positive all the way through from start to finish.
Right.
Because there's nothing worse than you're coming into a class, you're getting some good positive uh, situations with your dog, and you leave, and somebody, you know, jumps on your puppy, or somebody attacks your puppy, or somebody attacks your dog because they didn't have control of it. So we have very strict rules about that at our place. Like, dogs should be under control. We even did a little video on it. This is how you come in. This is how you go out. Because Joanne's place is like mine. There's the in and out. You're using it for both things. So there's dogs coming in and out of that facility. You got to be careful, because you can run into things, and again, you can set up situations that don't need to be set up by your dogs. So being mindful of coming in and out of giving your dog space, and giving other dogs their space is super important, right?
And I'll actually give you an example of this. I was in Minnesota, what, 2 weeks ago, last week, 2 weeks
Yep.
ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And there was a lady whose dog was sniffing something semi near the poop bucket, right? And I had a deposit to make. And so as I'm going, I'm noticing, like, she's, as she should be, she was really focused on her dog, and she's watching her dog. And I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I'm coming up behind you. I'm going to put this in the bucket." And she goes, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much for telling me. He's reactive and I didn't see you coming. And, like, I really appreciate that." So just that simple, like,
Yep.
coming up behind you, right? And so anymore, I assume, unless I know you and your dog, I'm assuming most dogs may have a problem with people or dogs, right? At least a little reactivity or whatever.
Or just surprising them.
Yeah, like, and I also had my special kid who's a little like, what are you doing? So it was on my mind too, like, hey, I don't want to surprise you, because if your dog barks, my dog's going to bark back at you, and I don't want that either. But in those commonality places, don't hang out there. And I don't even think she realized she was by the poop bucket, right? So be aware of your surroundings. If there's one or two poop buckets in a big parking lot of people, like, don't congregate by there. Don't, I'm trying to think of what are other common spaces, right? If there's
Usually the poop area is the biggest one.
right, or like a desk, right? If there's a front desk where you need to pay for something,
Yes.
potentially maybe put your dog in the car, put your dog in a crate, so it's not in a line of, like, passing other dogs when you are not paying attention.
Well, it's proactive versus reactive, right?
Right.
It's better to be proactive than reactive, because
Correct.
then at reactive, you're just management. Proactive is training.
The other thing for trials and or classes, and I see it very often, try not to bring all your stuff in and your dog. So bring in a crate, your treat bag, your purse, your phone, your dog, everything all in one trip. And trust me when I tell you, I understand that is a pain to go make 2 trips. But there's nothing worse than you having all your stuff with you and your dog. Something happens, man, it goes bad so quick.
Yep.
So that it's like, no, make 2 trips, bring your stuff in, get set up, and then bring your dog in. For whether it be a trial, like agility, obedience or whatever. And I see, and I'm gonna spotlight the obedience folks. They are the most notorious for that, of bringing all their stuff in and their very large active dog. And then they're pulling them, they're dropping things. It's chaotic. So, because they don't want to make 2 trips. And I understand not wanting to make 2 trips. But
And I love the obedience people, but they have the biggest bags of stuff. They're like duffel bags. I got my article.
or multiple dogs
Yeah.
together. Yes. Deb Schofield. Yes. Or bringing multiple dogs. I'm with you. You have 2 like That's why, and it's like occasionally I'm trying to walk my lab and my shepherd, which have a little bit more manners, to the car, and somebody wants to talk to me, and they're trying, and I'm like, I'll talk to you in a minute. Let me put my dogs in the car, and then I'll come back and have that conversation with them. Otherwise, I will fall down because my shepherd especially, he loves other dogs, and but he's very rude. So it's like no. So and many times if it's busy, I only do one dog at a time.
Yeah.
One dog, one dog.
And it depends on the level of training you've already given to that dog, right? I mean, I have dogs who I'm like, you lay down and wait, I'm having a conversation, and they're fine. And it depends on what your goals are. If you're going there for class, that's totally different than I'm going to like socialize with other people, and my dog's going to have friends with other dogs too. But
Right.
this is where I think crating's critical. Like,
Yep.
right, like crating is. I've run across so many people, some people are like, oh, we don't crate and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you might need to consider it to help you with management. Like, how are you going to get your dog through the situation?
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? If you have two, like I talked to somebody who had two very young dogs, 1 and 2, not that I'm not in the same boat, but I also crate train. Like, to me, that's really important. I put my dogs up. They learn how to be in a crate while I deal with other dogs at the same time. So the FOMO effect is not as, it's there. And as they're teenagers, it's much more exciting than when they're not, right?
Right. Well, and it's one of those things, right, that like, and I think the sniffing zone we're saying about the dog park, that is just I can't even because it's like people have absolutely, people go to the dog park, they're talk about being on the phone, dogs running around, they're on their phone, they're not even focused on what the dog is doing many times. So that's why I'm like I steer clear of those.
I use them as training opportunities.
Outside of the
When you
dog.
pay
This
attention
is walking
outside,
the fence around the outside.
I'm like, hi guys, we're gonna work on this. And
Here's my card. Here's my card.
I'm like, I'm all the dogs. I'm like, sit. With this one. Sit. Good job.
Take that to mommy. Take that to mommy. Oh,
Oh my God, that is true. Anyway, but yes. So, and for trials, the other thing for trial etiquette, if whatever dog sport you choose to do, you really, really need to know the rules. You really need to, even if it's the day before, or even if you have to sit in your car and look at the rules, you need to know what the rules are for whatever sporting event that you're doing.
Yes.
Because it is extremely challenging then to try to figure stuff out when you don't know, what's happening, and it just slows everything down, and it's hard. Or if you have a friend that you can ask before, because we've had, and then many times those very people that don't know the rules are the people who get very agitated with the judges about calls or things like that because they don't know what the rules are for that particular sport. So I think I know it should go without saying, but it's surprising how many people don't, and they're asking the judge at the start line, what's going on, or what am I doing, or what, you know what I mean? So the judge has to, take the time to explain it and it just delays the trial. So I know it sounds should be normal, but not so normal, right?
Print out and obsess about the rules when you're in your car.
she didn't even say, okay, bye.
Yeah, I know, right?
Usually that's what sets off her dogs. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And something, and also finding out before you take your dog out of your cart at a car, at a sporting event, find out where the dogs can go potty. Where is it okay to be? Because we've had, and I don't know if Joanne has, we've been at trials where people are just walking around, not, just walking their dogs, not knowing where the restroom is for the dog, instead of doing that first, finding out where it is, and then going and getting their dogs and taking care of it. Right.
And once you find out where that is, please, 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 confirmation people, I'm talking to you. Don't let your dog pee on things that people have to touch or move. It's gross. I went to pick up the poop buckets after a trial, and I cannot tell you how much urine stain was on the bottom of those plastic buckets. I had to pick those up and put them in my car, right?
Yeah.
That's so gross. And like, I don't have a hose. I can't spray them off. I'm at a random field in a school, right? Same things like if you're at a fairgrounds, I understand that that's not something I'm going to pick up, but the groundskeeper empties the trash. Don't pee on garbage cans. Don't pee on foliage that's next to a building, right? If there's a tree or a group of shrubs that's like back by the fence, go for it, right? I know I have males, they like to hike and pee, and I'm okay if it's a tree or, sometimes even a light post. That they're concrete, they're not going anywhere, nobody touches them. If they're kind of off in the potty area, fine. But things that people will ever have to pick up, move, touch, or brush up against, possibly going in and out of a building, please just don't let your dogs pee there.
Yeah.
It's gross.
And on the building, and on,
right,
because like our building, we have signs all over, don't allow your dogs to pee on the building, because it's it after a while it just smells. So and again, this is not to whine and complain, but these are all like really basic things that I think a lot of people maybe don't know. They were never made aware, and could be so helpful, especially for those people that are new to dog sports. These are basic things that most people know, and they understand, and also, find out what's the culture of that dog sport, right? Like in canine nose work, a lot of times there's a lot of crating out of your car. That's normal, right? For that particular sport. Agility, not so much anymore. Now they go inside in the building. So there's crating inside. So those are all like, know the culture of your sport. I know for some of the hunt tests, right? They crate out of their car. There's not a building they can go in and cover. In obedience, it's again inside where they're creating inside inside a building. So again, having that, oh my God, look at the puppy. See, it takes nothing to get my attention.
Is he the one causing all the ruckus?
Yes, of course he is. It's like, I don't know what the problem is. Anyway, so those are all things like learn what the culture of that sport is. And one great way to do that is to volunteer to help at some of those before you go and compete yourself. That is such a valuable experience. Even if you go for a half a day, first of all, the clubs will be very grateful, and the other ones, they will educate you really, really, really quickly about what the culture is for that particular dog sport. So that when you go as a competitor, you're going to have so much knowledge. You're going to know so many things, right? And going in there, it'll be much more comfortable for you. So like for our students, for nose work, we always encourage our students before they compete, they should volunteer one time so they could kind of know what the dealio is. And most of them
your instructor should help you. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, 100%. But right, Joanne, don't people come back and say they were so glad that they volunteered before they competed?
I have newbies that aren't trail ready, and they're like, oh my God, we when's the next one? We learned so much, right? So they're excited about volunteering. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Mary had heard, I was just going to comment on that.
Go ahead.
So I will just tell you, right, as a Nancy and I are COs for NECSW, right? There was talk about that. And it's basically like that is no longer tolerated, where there's dogs that are bark, 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 bark. And I'm not talking about somebody walked by your car and, your dogs were like, rah, 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 and then they quiet back down. Or I'm guilty when I pull up, right? I feel like Amy Wookatich, right? I pull up and everyone's like, blah, 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 blah. And so, yeah,
just tango. Just tango.
Give us just a second. We'll settle down, right? And they do. They settle right in when, you start unpacking and you do your thing. But The dogs that are just constant all day long, bark, 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 whine, whine, bark, 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 howl, 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 bark, 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 right? Number one, so many of our NACSW trials are in neighborhoods. Like these schools and stuff that these are at, there's houses right nearby. People didn't get a choice, and they don't need to listen to that all day long. We want to be invited back. So I think at least in NACSW, you can expect your COs or host is going to come talk to you if you have that, which also the dog's stressed out, right? Dogs don't bark for nothing. So that dog's not having a good time.
Right.
If it bark that much. Right. When you're talking like agility, I think is a rough one sometimes because some people like don't want to cover crates, right? And the dogs are like, rah, 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 dog's going. I mean, by the time you get to your run, your dog's exhausted. So
right.
Those are ones where like sometimes if you know the person or somebody else knows the person, be like, hey, I have an extra sheet in the car. Did you want to borrow it? Your dog seems a little, and you be kind, right? Like you need to cover your dog. Don't say it like that. I think AKC is probably one of the roughest ones because it's so fast paced and it moves all the time. And like we as judges never get to come out and see that stuff. We're just running through the dogs so fast. So that's more of a trial host thing.
Well, and to Joanne's point, I think one of the things that we definitely want to, if your dog's having that much of a difficult time at a trial that they're barking all day, you probably need to do some more training before you go back to trial. Does that make sense? Maybe, talk to the instructor about setting that up and being able to help your dog feel better about being in that situation. Because, what's causing the barking? Because it could be a myriad of things, right? It could be they don't like being in the crate in the car. So then you can have your crate outside the car as long as your dog is crated, right? And if that makes him feel better, yay. Or if he can be loose in the car with the wind, with some where they can't get out, the windows are maybe down a little, halfway or whatever, or they can be safe and they can't jump out of the car. Maybe he feels better in doing that. Right? So you have to figure out what's causing the emotional distress there. Is it the car? Is it the crate? Is it the other dogs around? I mean, what is causing the issue for the dog? It's really important to really know that, because just bark in the car could be caused by a lot of different things. It could be the other dogs. It could be the people. It could be many things. So you need to know why your dog is doing that. And one of the ways to do that is if you go on a field trip with your dog and your dog's, you can kind of deduce what's going on and why the dog is having such a problem with it.
Yeah. Kathleen says that her dog, the CO was at her car after she got back from the bathroom, but he doesn't bark when she's there. Right. So that's good. At least you know exactly what's causing the situation. Right. And that's like, there's multiple ways to solve that, right? If you have a friend at the trial, or even if your neighbor seems friendly and engaged, be like, hey, he barks a lot when I walk away. If your dog's friendly, like, would you mind feeding him a little bit to calm him down? Or you bring a can of Easy Cheese in a Kong, a lick mat, something that you can easily refill. So as you go to the bathroom throughout the day, the dog has a little easier transition. Or, if it's a hot trial, even like I'm going to roll it up and turn the car on for a minute while I go to the bathroom. So, there's lots of different options there to work on stuff, and I'm going to tell you, even my good dog, the best one of all, right? We used to be in Gen Pop all the time. So we would create I show all the time. And for whatever reason, I think when I was judging for Nancy a lot, and then when I got my own building and I have like their crate room, and he stopped being in the public crating area. I took him to an AKC trial once and I had to put him in the car. I was mortified. He was like, I don't know. This is a lot. And now, thank God, the place that I judge a lot, right, where I go, I'm like, we have a side room I can put him in. And he's quiet if he's in a room by himself, because that's what he's gotten used to. So I need to work on that if I want to do some of these bigger venues where it's just open crating, because it's not good for me right now.
Yeah, he's like, I don't like it. I'm not.
Yeah. I'm not number one in this room.
He's always number one.
Yeah.
To be
So
number one with you.
and he was always good. So you guys just like, I'm not scolding. It's because I'm dealing with it myself and it kind of came out of nowhere. So don't feel bad. It's just a thing that we have to manage and train.
Right. And the other thing is, our dog sports are sports like every other. They're like baseball, they're like um, football or pickleball or whatever you play, bowling, whatever. There is a level of sportsmanship that should be required when you trial your dogs. And if you're having a bad day, you might need to check that, right? And I know sometimes it's hard, but taking it out on your volunteers, your judges, it's not fair. They didn't have a bad day, or they didn't make you have a bad day. It was just, whatever. And, kind of keeping that on check is really important, because it's like, you don't, especially for, well, all dog sports, we need volunteers to come and work those trials, because all of them require a lot of work, right? And physical work. And we're all getting older. So it is difficult and challenging when you have a problem and the competitors are giving the volunteers a hard time. It kind of takes away the fun of volunteering, and some people don't want to do it anymore. And then it just becomes harder and harder to put on events, because it takes a village, and we're not even kidding about that. It just so and I think that's become we did have a meeting, and that was a topic of discussion, is about sportsmanlike conduct. That's becoming a bigger issue as we go on, and this shouldn't be an issue that we're having. This should be,
well, yeah. And on the reverse side of that, if you are a volunteer, I understand that competitors can get dumb during trial day. Like, you're like, what? Where am I going? What chair? I don't know. Right? I didn't see the cones on the ground. You're like, the big giant red cones that I told you to follow. I don't know. Right? People get nervous. So as a volunteer, remember that too. Like, don't get crabby at people. Just take a breath and go, you're going to go back the way you came, and you're going to take a left, and then find the red cones and follow them out. Right? So those types of things too. Like, everyone just take a breath, because I will tell you, I am a nosework judge for almost every venue that there is. My tolerance for those types of things is growing thin. Nancy's trial that she had, an AKC trial I was judging at, it was the morning parking.
yes,
Someone cussed out the parking volunteer, and had I heard it, I would have given her an opportunity to apologize. And if she continued on down that path, I would have excused her from the trial. It's all right to be like, I'm sorry, I'm having a bad day, like a little grumpy. But when you're threatening and you're using foul language, right, at someone, directed to someone, that is not okay. It's never okay. So, and I hope other judges follow suit. You might call me harsh, but we're all here to play with our dogs and have fun, and everyone is trying very hard. So pull it together and be kind.
Right. Because we, and right to that point, we are so lucky that some of us can afford to play with our dogs, that we can do the stuff with them, because there's some people that, can't. We get to enjoy this part of having a relationship with dogs. It's supposed to be a really good thing. So, and I understand about being nervous, and I understand about being a little stressed, but there's many ways of handling that. And, I know all of us talk to our students about that, about being, about somehow keeping it together and all that stuff. Yes. Yeah. When you're a competitor and competitors are not following the rules. Yeah, it is, Sherry. I would tell somebody in charge and say, hey, this is happening. Because I've had that. Since Joanne and I, we know a lot of people in the area, so we get texts from them. There's somebody that has a car. So
So she's asking if it's best to tell somebody in charge or kindly inform people of a protocol. I mean, I think depending on who you are, if you're comfortable with it, you can be like, hey, I don't know if you know this or not, but really, like, we're not supposed, you can't have your dog out on your lap in an NACSW trial. Like, I'm just letting you know, you might want to put your dog away before the CO comes, because they might get a little nastier. Not nasty is not the word I'm looking for, but right.
They might
scold you. They might scold you. And yes, you're right. It is more common now with people from other venues. And I'm a big fan of NACSW because there's not a ton of dogs out at the same time, right? I love that.
Right.
But yeah, most people are not comfortable enough to go talk to the person next to them and be like, you're not supposed to do that, So yeah, in that moment, tell a volunteer, tell the host, tell the CO if you see them, like, hey, might want to do a walk through that parking lot. There's some dogs hanging out there, and the CO will go, got it. I'll be there as soon as I can, right? Because that's our job is to go out. And
I get a lot of text. and now it's, if there's a CO in as a competitor, we'll usually keep an eye on things a lot. So we'll make sure that if there's a problem, if there's sense, but usually it's not like Joanne said, it's not very common, but happens occasionally for sure, So anyway, and so this is so. And Sherry, this goes back to the rules, right? What are the rules for that particular venue, and what are the because I know, and I can understand how some people get confused, but there are rules, and knowing them is just going to help things go smoother. And if you didn't have a chance to, you can ask your neighbor. There's, most of the people are very like-minded. They enjoy, you know what I mean? They'll be happy to help you out and tell you all about it and help you and give you that information. And we see that all the time, right? People asking and because they want to make sure they do the right things. But you definitely want to, and going back to Mary's about the excessive barking, or if your dog's having excessive problems, because the sport is one thing, but you have to train everything that goes with it. Crate training, being in the car, all those kind of things. And we get so focused on training the sport that we don't focus on everything that goes with it. The dog should be able to be comfortable traveling. The dog should be comfortable in the car. The dog should be comfortable in the crate. The dog should be, all of the things that entail, that are part of that sport. So like for agility, dogs have to be comfortable with being in a very noisy environment, because you're crated inside, dogs running and barking. That's going to be part of what they got to get used to. In nose work, that's not really, they don't have to get used to that, because that's not usually how it goes. But they have to be comfortable sitting in a car all day waiting to go in and do their, play the game. So there's all these different things. So whatever venue or whatever sport you choose, you just need to know what's required, what's involved with all of it, the getting there, all those trusts, so that you can then be prepared. Number one, because it's stressful enough as it is, going to a competition with your dog and doing all the stuff. So alleviate some of that stress by kind of knowing what the deal is when you get there, because then that'll alleviate some of that stress and pressure that you might be feeling, right? Knowing some of the basic rules there, and then just doing that, and everybody else is following a suit. So it just makes it simpler. Right. What else? What was the other thing? Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Yeah, but definitely having your dogs, being prepared when you go to competitions. Like I said, the sport is one thing, but you also should work on all the stuff around it. And classes help. This is more challenging when you're training on your own. You don't get used to waiting for your turn. You don't get used to all of that stuff. You have to, you're kind of training on the fly. But that's where sniffing goes are great. Or you can use some of the other venues where you don't have to spend all day to work on some of that stuff. So there's lots and lots of different ways to deal with that. Anyway.
Yeah, or, if you do train on your own, I mean, and this is more NACSW I'm talking about, right? But, or any of the nose work venues, really, if you do train on your own, put a chair out on your way to your bedroom, right? And just sit in the chair for 3 minutes. Your dog's gonna be like, what?
Yeah.
Odor's that way. You're like, I know, but we have to wait, right? And you may be surprised. Your dog's like, I don't want to wait here, right?
Yes.
So it's definitely, that's a little something you can sort of work by yourself, right? Go outside to the yard, go pee, come inside, sit at the kitchen table for a minute. Like, what are we doing? So it's a nice, easy way that you can throw in at least some of the waiting skill for your dog.
Right. Because that is, because a lot of people get very, oh, my dog doesn't like to wait. I go, well, but they have to learn that. That's,
Me neither, buddy.
I don't like to wait either, but it's unfortunately, it's part of the gig. So it's something we have to work on. So anyway, hopefully you found this helpful. And if you have any questions for us, please feel free to always email any one of us. Nancy at For Your Canine, Joanna at For Better For Worse, and Lisa at Your Canine Defined. And we're happy to help you or answer any questions, or send us, recommendations for more topics you want to hear about and that you want to learn about, and we'll be happy to do them. Because this one, a few people have kind of brought this up, and we decided this would be a good time to get it going, since now it's kind of trial season coming up. So have a great night. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.